The war on drugs has been going on for many years. Despite the risks involved, drug lords and retailers continue to peddle their wares. Even the police have learned how to stop these crimes and have sent thousands of attackers to jail. Because of this, some of the biggest drug seizures in history have found illegal drugs worth billions of dollars. Would you like to find out more about the biggest drug seizures in history? Then stay tuned in. Starting at number 10 is the UK's biggest haul. In April of 2015, the UK made the biggest drug seizure in its history. Two Turkish men were arrested and later pleaded guilty to trying to bring 3.2 tons of cocaine into the country illegally.
Tons of cocaine, but that broken down will come to about 7 to 8 tons of material that will be sold in the streets or would have been sold in the streets of Europe and the UK.
The street value of these drugs was thought to be $697 million. One police officer said that this was the same amount of drugs that were found in a whole year. The drugs were found in the strangest way. When searching a boat in Aberdeen Harbor, officers found a small amount of cocaine on the end of one of the drill bits that they were using. This led to more looking into the matter. They told the French government that the ship Hamal, which was registered in Tanzania, was near the west coast of the UK and that they thought it was carrying a lot of cocaine.
In order to protect the UK, then we'll work with operational partners to try and make big seizures before they actually reach the shores.
The huge stash of drugs was found when the ship was found and searched. On number 9 is Texas in 1989. In 1989, the police in Texas did a double bust. The first ship was stopped off the coast of Texas. 5 tons of cocaine were found on board. In a separate bust that happened on the same day, 9 tons of cocaine were found in the home of a person who was thought to be a drug kingpin.
The world's largest cocaine bust still causing problems for Los Angeles police tonight.
It is thought that the cocaine came from Colombia, so the seizure hurt the drug lords in this country a lot. It is thought that the street value of all the drugs was around $1 billion, which makes it one of the most successful seizures in US history. On number 8 is Australia in 2014. MDMA and amphetamines are two of the most common drugs in Australia. People who go to parties and rave use these drugs to get more out of their experience. But these drugs could kill, so authorities in Australia are cracking down hard and trying to seize them before they get to the streets. They got a lot of the drugs on November 14th of 2014. There were actually 2.8 tons of pills made of MDMA and methamphetamine. These had been shipped from Hamburg, Germany to Australia in a container on a ship. They were hidden in the containers that were built into the furniture. The pills were worth about $1.5 billion on the street. Number 7 on the list is Saudi Arabia and Turkey in 2010. In 2010, police in Saudi Arabia and Turkey found 30 tons of ingredients that were meant to be used to make a pill called Captagon. This drug is also called the jihad pill by many people. It is often sent between the two countries, and many seizures of this drug have happened in the last 20 years. But this is one of the biggest things that have been taken so far. There were enough of the ingredients to make about 200 million of psychostimulant tablets. These would be worth about $1.6 billion on the street. At number 6 we have the Pablo Escobar seizures in 1984. Pablo Escobar was one of the most powerful drug lords ever. At the height of his criminal activities, he made such a high income because he sold about half of his cocaine to the US. Because his business was so big, he needed a lot of cars to get his drugs to where they were needed. He would sneak drugs to where they were needed by boat, plane, helicopter, and even submarine. A lot of the drugs were made in a secret lab called Tranquilandia, which was hidden in a jungle. This lab had its own landing strip, 4 planes, and its own army. It even had electricity and water that didn't come from the grid, as well as dorms for the people who worked there. The DEA wanted to catch this coke kingpin so badly that they put tracking devices on his raw materials to find him and take his drugs. In 1984, the DEA made a seizure and they found about 14 tons of cocaine. At the price it would have today, this was worth about $2.2 billion. But this would have not made a lot of difference to the actual annual income of Pablo Escobar, which was thought to be around $25 billion at the time. At number 5 we have the San Francisco bust in 1991. After a bust in 1991, it was a little bit more difficult for heroin addicts in San Francisco to get their fix. At that time, the police could say that they had the biggest haul of heroin ever, and there is even TV footage of their haul because TV crews were there when the stash was found. When 59 boxes containing 1,059 pounds of China white heroin came from Thailand to the Bay Area, the police were ready to seize it. At today's street prices, the haul was worth about $5 million. It was worth more than the budget for the DEA for 2010. Commanders of the drug war that the haul was equal to about 5% of all the heroin made in the world in 1991. At number 4 is the California haul in 1989. Most of the people who lived in a California neighborhood at the base of the San Gabriel Mountains knew that one of their neighbors was a criminal. Rafael Muñoz Talavera, who ran a major drug cartel, lived in this area. In 1989, police found 21 tons of cocaine in his warehouse, even though this was a small amount to the 77 tons of drugs that went through the warehouse the year before. It was still a big enough haul to set a record. It is worth $13 billion on the street, and there is enough of it for every person in the US to smoke 5 lines of cocaine. Talavera spent $81 million just on transportation costs for moving such a large amount of drugs. Along with the cocaine, the police also took $12 million in cash. Number 3 on the list is Afghanistan in 2009. Opium trafficking is one of the main ways that terrorist groups like the Taliban make money. About 90% of the opium in the world comes from Afghanistan, according to some estimates. In 2009, 92 tons of opium and poppy seeds were taken from the streets by Afghan forces. Because this is such a big haul, it is hard to say how much these drugs are worth. But the Afghan forces saw it as a victory in the war on drugs and the war on terrorism. It is thought to be the largest amount of drugs ever taken by Afghan forces. But there are some who say that this seizure cost something. The operation was said to be poorly planned and ineffective, and it cost 60 soldiers their lives. When the forces told the Air Force to bomb the stash, the drugs were destroyed. Coming at number 2 is Germany in 2021. BBC News says that in February of 2021, a joint investigation by German and Belgian authorities found a record amount of cocaine in Hamburg and Antwerp. This cocaine was on its way to the Netherlands. There were more than 500,000 pounds of cocaine hidden in shipping containers that came from South America. On February 12th, customs officers at the port of Hamburg searched 3 containers that were supposed to be carrying construction putty from Paraguay. They did this after getting a tip from their colleagues in the Netherlands. When the officers looked inside the boxes, they found 16 tons of cocaine hidden in cans of putty. The street value of the 16 tons of cocaine was thought to be between $1.6 and $3.7 billion. This operation, which took place in Hamburg and Antwerp, Germany and Belgium, is being called Europe's largest seizure ever. The last one is a recent seizure in Belgium. The number of cocaine seizures at the port of Antwerp, which is the main way that illegal drugs get into Europe, hit a new high last year. Belgian and Dutch officials are becoming more worried about the power of violent international gangs. The annual numbers for drug seizures in Belgium and the Netherlands were released a day after an 11-year-old girl was shot and killed in an Antwerp home in what the city's mayor called the latest act of violence in a drug war that has been going on for years. Now, the main container terminal in Belgium is seen as the biggest way for illegal drugs to get into Europe. In 2022, 109.9 tons were seized, and it is unknown how much more made it to the market. The number of goods seized in 2022 went up from 89.5 tons in 2021. So these were the biggest drug seizures of all time. And this brings us to the end of the video. Hope that you have enjoyed it. Subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and press the bell icon for more updates like this one.